Lakeport. And that's the hospital grid. And I can't remember the last time that the power was out for more than like 30 minutes. I mean, ever.
Yeah, they keep that circuit pretty well back.
Aha! I see your generator is apparently stepped off the treadmill.
Backfiring.
You gotta hang another dog biscuit in front.
There you go.
What time is it?
And the dog doesn't like it either.
There's one thing I don't like is I cannot see. Oh, I can't see, but well, it's 6:35 by my clock. Is that correct?
It is.
Right by my-
Are we ready to go, Mr. Mora?
Hold on.
Okay.
I think we may need one or two more people online.
Oh, I see. Okay. Roger that. Okay. So if I put it on full screen, my little pop-up doesn't pop up.
Oh, Peter. Yeah, Peter needs to pop up. Where is he?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there we go.
Oh my goodness. Robocalls.
Wait, who am I missing?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I think that's it, huh? Mario would be with Kent Brown Engineering. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
9.
Hmm?
It's 9. Mike,
Oh, Mike's
Sarah,
9.
Charlie, Kirk, Rich, Susan,
So we're
Brett,
missing-
Stacy, Peter.
Don't we have a new member?
Bruce.
Susan Hodgkins is with us.
Maybe
She's a
pro-
new alternate, I believe. Yes.
And Ed.
And Ed we knew about. Okay. All right, you're all set to go, Peter.
There is a quorum. All right, excellent. Are we live?
We are live.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Burnett. I'm the chair of the Laconia Planning Board. Due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 and executive order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this meeting, where all members of the board have the ability to communicate, and the public may watch the meeting live on YouTube at https://youtube.com/LaconiaNH, no space. You can listen to this meeting by dialing the following phone number, 1-312-626-6799. That's 626-6799. And participate in public hearings using the Zoom application. The webinar ID for tonight, I believe, is 894-8885-6414. And again, the phone number is 646-558-8656. We are providing public notice with the necessary information to connect, as I just read. Public notice was previously given with instructions to access the meeting using Zoom. And that those instructions can usually be found on the Agenda Center at laconianh.gov. We're also providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body, to let us know during the meeting if there are any problems with access. If anyone has a problem accessing this meeting, you may call 524-3877 extension 249 or send an email to planning@laconianh.gov. We are required to adjourn the meeting if we become aware during the meeting the public is unable to access the meeting. Let's see. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting have to be done by roll call vote. We will call a meeting to order here shortly, and a roll call attendance will be held. When each member states their presence, please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is another requirement under the right to know law. So may we have a call of the roll, please?
Mike Delvecchio,
Present.
Jenna? Sarah Jenna?
I am here and I have Skip Jenna, Isabel Jenna. That's it.
Charlie St. Clair? Kirk Beatty?
I'm remote and alone.
Rich McNeil?
Remote and alone.
Susan Hodgkins?
Remote and alone.
Brett Bellevue?
Remote and alone.
Stacy Susie?
Remote and alone.
Peter Burnett?
Remote and alone.
Charlie?
Question, Oh,
Is Charlie
sorry.
there?
Charlie?
I'm here, but I can't hear you guys. I barely hear anybody.
Turn up your volume.
Okay. And the question for staff, should we seek
Understand.
one of the alternates?
Mhm.
What are we down to? Rich and Susan, right?
I lost my.
No,
Can
Rich, not Rich, Brett,
Brett,
Stacy, and Susan are alternates, and I think you need to seat two. Hang on a second, let me check count.
well, that's right. Brett is still an alternate until he has been interviewed and approved by the city council.
You
As
you
a
can seat
full
all
member.
three alternates.
All right. Well, Susan's going to hit the ball rolling tonight. Susan
Welcome to the
Hodgkins,
Planning board.
our new member. So all three of the alternates will be full members and may participate in the discussions and the votes. Thank you very much for the call of the roll. Kalina Graham is our recording secretary. Also with us for staff is Dean Trefethan and Rob Mora. And have you had a chance to review the February 4th minutes, everyone? Unless anyone has any changes to suggest, I'm going to declare the minutes acceptable. Are there any, or accepted? Are there any additions or corrections? Sensing none, then the minutes of the February 4th Planning Board meeting are accepted by the board. Moving along now to, on the agenda, we have, it looks like we have one extension. Is that an extension? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I
yes.
may. You have a request to move item 15, old business,
Oh.
up to the front of the agenda.
Oh, that is correct. Yes, I indicated in an email with you about that I would be willing to do that. Is there any objection to moving the issue of the reconsideration on Canton's to before the public hearings rather than at the very end? Does anyone have any objection to doing that? Okay, well, I don't hear that any members of the board are objecting. I think what we need to do is who made the motion to reconsider?
Charlie did.
Charlie did?
I did, yes.
Okay. Is there a representative from the applicant on this call?
He is here in person.
Okay, he's in there. All right. So procedurally, Dean, so would this be the maker of the motion's burden here, or the reconsideration vote already passed? So basically the ball's in the hands of the applicant at this point, I think, right?
That is correct.
Okay,
You're only considering the waiver request for the street trees.
correct.
And what I would do is hear presentation from the applicant and then basically proceed like you normally would with any other application.
Okay, all right then. Would whoever is representing Canton Chevrolet, please step up and identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, Tom Canton, Canton Chevrolet.
Good evening, Mr. Canton.
Mr. Burnett, how are you?
I'm pretty well, thank you.
Excellent.
So we are here obviously because a motion was passed at the last meeting to reconsider the vote denying the waiver. So this is another opportunity for you to convince the board as to the merits of your waiver request.
Okay. So it's not the way I understood it. I understood that you voted at the last meeting to reconsider it, that it wasn't denied, that it was to rediscuss it, but that's semantics. In January, I stood in front of you folks and we talked about street trees and waivers and a project at 570 Union Avenue to turn into a display lot with storage for new cars. There were 3 votes that evening. One to accept the proposal, which was granted, one for a waiver that passed 7-1, and one for the overall project that passed, I think it was 7-1. I left the meeting and came back the following February, or a month later, the following meeting, for a separate project at 645 Union Avenue to create a parking lot, not a display lot, a parking lot. I left that meeting and then a few days later found out that there was a reconsider vote on the street trees.
I had it backwards. I'm sorry. Yes, it was.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
I've been here a lot, so for you to figure out which one meeting it was, and it's fairly confusing. I'm trying to remember which day was which.
Right.
Well, so I
Well-
reviewed the video and watched what happened at that meeting and what the concern was. And if I could just address some of the things some of the concerns, and we can go from there. So the objection came up from Mr. Delvecchia, where he was concerned about Canton Chevrolet not doing what it should do and not following through on what was a frivolous excuse in the way it was worded. And he cited a bunch of different places up and down Union Avenue. Bear with me. He talked about Watermark Marine, McDonald's, 8 Gables Mall, Dairy Queen, strip mall next to Dunkin' Donuts, O'Reilly Auto, Liberty Tax. There were some other ones, all of which have parking lots with street trees. Perfect. He missed a couple. On 49 Mechanic Street, Canton Chevrolet has Canton Collision and Paint Center with street trees. At 645 Union Avenue, Canton Chevrolet has an employee parking lot that we just got approved in February with street trees. I'm coming back next month, I think next month, or maybe May, we haven't determined that yet, for an expansion on the 645 approval, which ultimately would make the lot bigger, and we'd be adding more street trees. I don't have any issue with street trees in a parking lot. I'm not proposing to build a parking lot. It is a display lot and new car storage. They're vastly different. When I have new inventory sitting on a lot and I have deciduous trees sitting over the top of them, they have droppings on them as long as there are leaves in the trees or the trees are producing sap, I'm assuming is the proper term. We've painted a lot of cars because of things falling on the hoods. When we paint a new car, that's diminished value on the car. So if I had street trees on 570 Union Avenue, I couldn't park cars up against the front row. It would diminish the size of the lot by a third. It makes the project untenable. I'm not trying to get away with something. I'm not trying to shirk my responsibilities of the city. I'm concerned about the views of Union Avenue. It was stated in the February meeting and other business that, if I understood it correctly, there was only one person that thought they cared about what Union Avenue looked like. My family's been on Union Avenue for 75 years. We've been in Laconia this is our 92nd year in business. I care about Laconia. We've invested millions of dollars on Union Avenue. So not wanting to put in some trees because it's expensive, I'm proposing the opposite. I'm proposing to spend 3 times the money on 30 24-inch. It's a form of a spreading yew, Y-E-W, that my landscape contractor, which I've hired after our approval in January, is put together. It's 3 times the dough to do that. So it's not a money thing. It's a display and storage lot. Display, you have to be able to see the cars by displaying them. They're for sale. It's a storage lot. They're going to sit there, and unlike a parking lot where you drive in the morning and you leave at night, a storage lot, the cars will be there they can be there for weeks at a time in the same position. When droppings fall on a car like that, it's not 1 month a year we have to blow the leaves off. It's not 1 day a week we have to go out and wash the cars. It's a constant evolving deal. It's the business we're in. I purchased the lot to enhance my business, to expand my business. We don't go with these things. I take pride in my properties. I take pride in the way they look, and I'm proud of my organization. So I'll stand by that. No, I don't want street trees. There's a rule in the city of Laconia to have street trees. We're not going to argue why you should have that rule or not have the rule, but I would argue whether you should have a common sense interpretation of that rule. When does it make sense? When doesn't it make sense? And maybe in a lot of cases, having deciduous trees in the front row makes total sense. It made sense for me in my collision center. It makes sense for me in my employee parking lot. It's going to make sense for me in the expansion of the employee parking lot. It does not make sense in a display and storage lot. I could go on, but that's the general crux of why I asked for the waiver to begin with. We discussed it in January. The question came up. There was a lot of discussion in January amongst the board. Then there was a vote. That vote was 7-1 to pass it. After that, I've moved forward. I've hired a contractor. We've done engineering work, both for the wall, both for electrical. PSNH is on board through Daniels Electric, who's my electrical contractor. All my contractors are local contractors. So when I got the approval, I thought that meant that I could move forward. I was asked to come here tonight. I have no problem coming back and answering questions. I would just like people to ask me directly so I can answer them and not after I'm gone. So if there are questions, please, I'd love to be able to address them and we can move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Canton. Is Mr. Delvecchia with us?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. I believe this was it was based on your objection, so I'll give you the floor in rebuttal.
Very good. Tom, Sorry to have to make it come back. I mean, no disrespect to you or your business. You run a nice operation there. It's just, we have rare chances to make Union Avenue more attractive. And the city has ordinance to put trees up because it makes it more attractive. Because you don't want to clean the cars off, I don't think is a good enough excuse not to have trees. We have to take advantage of every opportunity we get to enhance Union Avenue. And I'm sure you like to enhance it too. What are the hues you're talking about? I'm unfamiliar.
The U's, YEWS, they're a spreading U. They're 24 inches in diameter when they're planted.
How tall?
I'd be making it up and guess about a foot. I have them in front of my used car lot now. They've been there for a long time. The difference between these, the plan shows 33 of them. 33 24-inch U's that are going to be along the front, down both sides of the property. Those will grow, and the spreading U's, they do exactly that. They spread and they're going to join each other to a degree. They can be sitting on top of grass. There's going to be a full irrigation system in there to make sure that they look right. That they're not going to grow taller than the bumper of a car. That's really important to me. You know, we could put up a nice hedgerow there that looked great, but it completely defeats.
You want to see your cars, obviously.
Yeah, that's my business. That's the way we make it work.
I don't see a couple of trees. I don't know how many's required in the footage that you have.
Do you know how much it costs to paint one hood of one car?
I'm sure it's quite expensive.
It's a lot of money.
I'm sure.
And then you add that to the roof of the car, add that to the trunk of the car, add that to 25 of them across the front, multiply that times how many days that's going to happen.
Yeah,
okay, gentlemen, I don't think we want to do this back and forth. Michael, you finish your statement and then I'll let Mr. Canton respond. How's
Very
that?
good. Very good.
I was just responding to the question that you asked me. Sorry.
No, I understand that, but
I'm fine. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, Tom, that's enough.
That's all you got, Mike.
Once again, no disrespect to your business. You run a nice operation there.
Okay.
I appreciate that. But if you have other questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
All right. So are there any questions for either Mr. Delvecchia or Mr. Canton or for staff? By members
I just
of the
have a
board?
comment.
Okay.
I guess I'm confused on why we're not granting the waiver too. I mean, clearly.
We did grant it.
Okay, but we're
Mr.
tracking.
Delvecchia objected to it after the fact.
Okay.
And the applicant is here indicating he's acted in reliance upon the order granting his conditional use permit and his site plan.
Okay, so are we voting again on this or what happens, I guess, is what I'm confused on.
Well, somebody would have to make a motion and second it if the board wished to revisit that decision. And so that's where we're at right now. Just
Okay.
giving the board an opportunity to, as you just did, ask questions about where we're at procedurally.
Okay.
I was initially confused myself.
Okay, I will say I understand exactly what he's talking about because we had a tree by one of our vehicles that did a ton of damage to the paint and it is a pain in the neck. So I completely understand where Mr. Canton's coming from. I think it's reasonable to request the waiver in this case.
Yeah. Anything else from any other members of the board?
Peter, this is, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mr. St. Clair.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure I've made this comment before. I like trees a lot, and I think that the city, rather than we're just requiring people to put trees up whenever they do a new development or improvement to property, could set a good example by taking care of the trees and putting maybe some trees that last longer along our city streets. And maybe not putting out so much salt and other chemicals to kill the trees that we have around the city. So that's just a comment I want to make, not only as a planning board member, but as a resident. Because Peter, again, we're talking age. So you remember what we used to have in the city all over the place. It wasn't just elm trees, but we had a lot of other different trees that lined the streets. And they're pretty much gone now. And for the most part, the city has relied on property owners to replace those, either voluntarily or not voluntarily. So again, that's just a comment I wanted to make about that. I will support a motion to grant a waiver on this, and I appreciate Mr. Canton coming in and giving, I think, a very good presentation on not only about these trees, but pretty much a brief history of his business there. So I think that was well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. I think that's a good point. Arbor Day is in, is that June? Nor is that Flag Day? I can't remember. Arbor Day is in April.
April, yeah.
Maybe by Arbor Day, Charlie, you and I could get up a tree planting initiative, and the city could go around and offer trees to property owners that abut city streets and see if they want them. So anyway, just a thought. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
All right, just to clarify, because I don't know that Charlie well, something Charlie said made me realize the issue is not, I mean, the motion tonight would be to overturn and change a decision that the board made at a previous meeting. So someone would have to make a motion to actually deny the waiver because it's already been granted, and then second that motion, and then we'd have a roll call vote. All right. So where the applicant is at is that they've already achieved their objective, and they have acted in reliance upon the order that we issued a couple of meetings ago.
Peter, can I just say something real quick?
It certainly may, Mr. Bellabo.
I think maybe what we need to look at is this whole requirement for the trees, maybe rewording that to say, depending on the business type or the property type, that trees can be substituted with another sort of vegetation along the street. Because it kind of seems to me, this is the first that I heard about the yew bushes. It seems to me that a vegetation in one form or another, besides weeds, is going to enhance the view of it. And I understand that because of the nature of the business, the trees could do damage. But if they are willing to plant low bushes, I think that also adds to the aesthetics of Union Ave. So maybe we need to look at the wording of that requirement for trees and maybe put something in there or alternate vegetation.
Okay. Well, I think Dean will correct me if I'm wrong, but the criteria for granting a waiver of anything like that, sidewalks, street trees, is pretty much in the discretion of the board. But it's usually based upon some unique aspect of that property or the potential for hardship. And in this particular case, I think the applicant has pointed out that the nature of their business makes street trees a bad choice. And they came up with a landscape plan that at least adds vegetation to that area. But I think the street tree ordinance was intended to primarily foster an aesthetic as well as a sort of ecological aspect of it. And the ecological aspect is probably the same regardless of the type of plant that is actually put in the ground, the atmospheric and soil preservation characteristics of the plants. So we've certainly, I would agree with Mr. Bellabo, I think we all can, that this is an issue that we can take a better look at. And I would also say, just for what it's worth, that I agree with Charlie, that once again, the city needs to be stepping up and showing some leadership on an issue like this. Yes, I'm old enough to remember when there were elm trees on Elm Street, or at least elm stumps, I think. Charlie's old enough to remember the trees when they were saplings.
Absolutely. That's right.
At saplings, yeah. Any other discussion on this?
Let me just, Mr. Tom, would you be willing to plant a couple trees elsewhere on somebody else's property on Union Avenue?
No.
No.
I'll do whatever I need to do for my properties. I'll make my properties look right. I'll do everything in and out of the building, but no.
Well, we have a sidewalk waiver. We give
I
people
know, and
waivers
I've built
sometimes.
sidewalks around the city for other projects,
Yeah.
and I'm fine with that. I'm not planting trees anyplace else.
Very good.
All right, is there anything further from the board? All right, then, would someone care to make a motion?
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we deny the waiver to not have trees.
Okay, there's a motion.
570 Union Avenue.
There's a motion to
Deny.
deny, well, basically revoke permission for the waiver, right? Revoke the waiver?
Whatever the wording is, Dean probably would know best.
I think that's what we're talking about. Is there a second for the Mr. Delvecchia's motion? Anyone? Well, the motion dies for lack of a second, Mr. Delvecchia. Mr. Canton, thank you for coming in and informing the board and for the site plan.
Appreciate you
And
considering.
the spreading use, I guess.
I'm spreading use.
Spreading use.
I don't know if that sounds great or not, but that's what we're gonna be doing.
That's all we'll say
With
about
COVID,
that,
I don't know if that's the greatest thing, but
as Gump would say. And that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Mr. Burnett, thank you. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Mr. Canton. Have a nice night. All right, let's see. Now I'm gonna get back to my nifty little agenda. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, we are at 7.1. It's a conditional use permit, PL 2020-0018 CUP Drummer Trail to request to extend the approval to construct a single-family home within the 50-foot wetland buffer. And this is a request for extension, just to be double check that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Attorney Phil Brouillard here
Oh.
for the owners.
Good evening.
We had gotten a CUP approved by the board last April. And due to the COVID pandemic, there was some delays in building, but there are plans to build on the lot this spring, and we'd like to get an extension.
All right, Drummer Trail, is that South Down? Where is that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, are there any questions for Attorney Brouillard? Was that a yes? Anyone? Okay. Does anyone have any discussion?
You
Is
need
this-
one more year, Phil?
I'm sorry.
Are you asking for another year?
Another year, yes.
Another year, okay. Staff, is there any reason why we shouldn't grant an extension?
No, from staff standpoint, no reason not to grant.
Okay. Does anyone care to make a motion regarding the request for extension?
I'll make a motion to grant the extension for PL 2020-0018 CUP for an extension for a year.
Okay, motion by Ms. Jenna. Is there a second?
I second that.
And that was, I couldn't see. Was that Susan?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Ms. Hodgkins. Any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, I will ask Ms. Graham to call the roll.
Mike Delvecchia,
Favor?
Sarah Jenna. Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, the motion is granted. Thank you very much, Mr. Brouillard, Attorney Brouillard, good to see you. Moving along. 8.1. PL 2013 0100 SP. Amendment 2, it's 264 Lakeside Avenue. Oh, this matter is, the applicant is requesting that it be continued to the April meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have to take any action on that, or can we just, do we need a motion to table or something?
A motion to table it to April 6th.
Okay, would someone care to make that motion? Oh, and by the way, that you should have gotten copies. The applicant has gotten an estimate for the installation of the HVAC equipment, which is intended to allow him to comply with both his current and former conditional use permits. So would someone care to make a motion to table this until the April 6th meeting?
I will go ahead and make a motion that we table PL 2013-0100 SP Amendment 2 until the April 6th Planning Board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Belleville. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second. Oh, go ahead.
Don't jump all over it.
I
All right,
know.
seconded by Ms. Ms. Jenna, and thirded by Mr. St. Clair. Any discussion on the motion? Sensing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Mike Dellavecchia,
Favorite motion?
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. PL 2021-0004 SP, 12 Norman Circle. It's a proposal to add 14 RV sites to the existing site. And it was continued from February 4th. Did we have the public hearing in February?
Yes.
We did. All right. Is the applicant present?
The applicant is present.
Pardon me?
The applicant is present.
The applicant is present. All right. So why don't we hear from the applicant then?
Yeah, my name is Kent Brown from Brown Engineering, and I'm representing Ron Stafford in the proposal. At the last planning board meeting, the board asked that we send staff a letter about the drainage. There was a concern about the runoff, which we did, and I think staff's reviewed it, and Dean may be able to comment on that. And I think that was the only thing that came up at the last meeting.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant from members of the board? All right. So I guess we'll open a second public hearing and then we'll hear from staff. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Mr. Trevethan? Yes. All right. So public hearing is now declared open at 7:10 p.m. Are there any members of the public or butters that wish to be heard? Mr. Moore, do we have anybody in our virtual waiting room?
Mr. Chair, nobody has indicated online that they wish to speak for or against the application.
Okay, anybody come wandering into City Hall on this one? I mean, other than the applicant?
No.
No, okay. All right, then we're gonna close the public hearing then at 7:10 p.m. And we'll hear from staff, please.
Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate a little bit on the, hang on just a second. To reiterate a little bit more on the stormwater drainage, I had a couple of back and forths with Brown Engineering concerning this. The new RV sites that are going to be added that are labeled 38 through 46, the even numbers anyway, are going to be built up, and there's a retaining wall being built, and then there's a swale between the actual sites and the retaining wall. That swale will control the runoff from those new sites and direct it to the an area near White Oaks Road where it will, what's left to drain that doesn't percolate through in the swale will drain where the present drainage goes right now. By constructing these 5 RV sites, they are in effect eliminating a slope there that drains from their driveway to the adjacent property, and they have mostly eliminated that slope on their property and will contain most of the stormwater on their property. So I know there was a question about what is going to happen to that stormwater, and that's the explanation on that one. And the analysis by Brown Engineering shows that there will be equal or less runoff onto the adjacent property than is currently the situation. There was also a question about the stormwater structure that is adjacent to that area, the existing stormwater structure, and where the drain line that's indicated on the line goes. And we have looked at an old plan that shows that drain line continues all the way through the adjacent property and goes to the existing stormwater system out on Endicott Street East. So the drain from that stormwater structure does not dump on the adjacent land. It continues in an enclosed system all the way to Endicott Street, and then is joined up with the regular stormwater drainage system that's already existence on the street. So overall, there should be less drainage from this site onto the adjacent subject property.
So when the stormwater leaves the property, does it enter a catch basin on the street, which is then conveyed to?
The drain line is a direct connect to a stormwater basin on Endicott Street East, yes. The
Okay.
swale that's being constructed behind these 5 new lots, 5 sites, will capture the water, treat it, and in most cases, the water will just percolate through the ground right there. The occasional heavy rain, there will be a discharge from that swale near the White Oaks Road, and that will go to the adjacent property just as their stormwater currently does, but the calculations show that there will be less of it.
And the swale is intended to treat the stormwater before it is conveyed off, right?
Treat it and catch some of it.
Right.
Yes.
So of the siltation and all that.
Yes.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Trefethan from members of the board? Or for the applicant's representative?
I have a question for Dean.
Sure.
Dean, listening to your explanation, I just have a question. Let's say 2 to 3 years down the road, if this is not working like it should, especially with some of the heavier work we have with moisture, is it possible to go back and require either more work to be done to fix it or just to fix it in general?
Possible, yes. it would be probably not something that the city would be able to enforce, but rather it would be a civil matter.
Even though we're approving the layout as it is now? They couldn't come back and say, you know what, you guys never should have approved because.
Could come back to the city and you could deal with it, but you might not be able to solve the problem. I don't want to give you false hope. I mean, yes, we can deal with it and we can look at it and make suggestions or, you know, all of those things. But according to the plan and the calculations now, there's less, let's say we don't build these RV sites and we don't build the swale and we don't build the retaining wall, all of the stormwater that is now going down that slope will continue to do that.
Well, that's a good explanation. So, but by doing this work, we're not going to increase the possibility of more stormwater by putting these sites in there.
Given the design, I do not believe that it increases stormwater.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? Well, sensing none, what is the pleasure of the board? We've had a couple of public hearings on this.
Peter, I would like to make a motion that we approve PL 2021-0004 SP for 12 Normandin Circle. I believe they've illustrated through their engineering that this will not have an adverse effect on the abutting property. So I move that we approve it.
We have a motion from Mr. Bellevaux. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Chief Beatty. Any further discussion regarding the motion to approve PL 2021-0004 SP? Sensing none, then I guess we'll call the question. May we have a roll call, please?
Mike Delvecchio,
Approve.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Mark Biotti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries. Have a great season.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the board's consideration.
Okay, no problem. Let's see. I have a question regarding the revocations coming up. Do we need a public hearing to revoke a prior action of the board permit?
The answer is I don't know. I think to be on the safe side that it would be prudent to do that.
Well, okay. What were I guess what I'm getting at is, was the applicant specifically noticed and abutters and all that?
Yes.
Okay, well then we will. Revocation of 010008 SU Jomish Realty Trust, Marco Estates, White Oaks Road, MBL 235-241-4. Previously approved 25 lot subdivision. Project is expired. The applicant has not taken any action. Is there an applicant here or online that wishes to be heard?
Mr. Chair, there's
Anybody?
nobody online that wishes to speak for that application.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you say there is someone or there isn't someone?
There is not.
There is not. I am sorry. I was waiting for the phantom to appear. All right, then. I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. It is 7:20 p.m. Are there any abutters or any members of the public that wish to be heard regarding the revocation of approval for the White Oaks Road 25 unit subdivision? Any members of the public or abutters? All right, sensing none, then we'll call the public hearing closed at 7:21 PM. I think what I'm going to do is we'll go through the rest of these revocations and then we'll save the motions we'll do an omnibus motion at the end, rather than go through all the roll calls over and over again. So let's go to revocation of 05006 SU, 05007 CUP. This is the Bossy's New Hope Drive, previously approved 22 lot subdivision. The project has expired and a different plan is hopefully in the works, I guess. And I will ask the Bossy's here or a representative.
This is Attorney Ethan Wood with Normandin, Cheney and O'Neill representing the Bossy's.
Well, good evening, Attorney Wood.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Yes, so we are contemplating the revocation because the project has expired, meaning, the deadlines weren't met.
Right.
Does the applicant object to us kicking you back to the drawing board, so to speak?
Well, so the only thing that's a bit of a wrinkle in this is that there is a recorded agreement between the city and the applicant from 2012 with regard to extending deadlines on this. And I don't know exactly how that interacts or what the import of that is. And so I would have brought this to Dean's attention earlier, but I just discovered it. And again, I don't know what the implication is with regard to that and whether the site plan can be revoked unilaterally while that agreement is in place.
All right, well, that's of course another legal issue. It's been represented to us that a different plan is in the works. Is that true?
That is an accurate representation. It's the applicant's intention to submit a new application tomorrow prior to the noon deadline.
Well, then, it wouldn't matter then if we were to revoke the old one, would it?
I can't speak to that. I can't speak to what, I'm in an impossible situation. I don't have any background on the agreement that was in place between the city and the Bossy's, and I don't have any information about whether or not one party can unilaterally act with regard to that agreement.
Okay. So are you representing to us that the applicant would object to us revoking the previously granted site plan and CUP?
I cannot make that application either, or I cannot. So unfortunately, I don't have anything. All I'm functionally doing is notifying you all that
that you
yes,
don't know. Right.
That's right. There's this thing out there. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does. And I don't know how you all need to deal with it.
You sound like Captain Kirk. It's thing out there. I don't know what we're going to do. All right. Well, I'm going to open a public hearing at 7:25 p.m. Are there any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard? Are there any butters or members of the public wish to be heard?
Chair, nobody has indicated they wish to speak for or against this application.
All right, then I will close the public hearing at 7:25 p.m. Let's move along. Revocation of, is that PL 2019-0124 SU, 55 Bay Street, 6 Winnisquam Avenue. It's a previously approved boundary line adjustment, and the project's not moving forward. I think that one was Attorney Brouillard, wasn't it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and we have no objection to the board taking action to revoke that. After it was all the pins were put in the ground and the tapes were put up, the Goins saw it and decided that they didn't want to sign the boundary line agreement. So that's not proceeding at this time.
All right. Well, thank you for that representation. Notices having already gone out, I'm going to open a public hearing on this one. Unless there's a member of the board that wishes to be heard or to ask Attorney Brouillard a question before we go there. I'm sensing none. The public hearing is hereby declared open at 7:26 p.m. Are there any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard regarding the 55 Bay Street, 6 Winnisquam Ave previously approved boundary line adjustment?
Mr. Chair, nobody has indicated they wish to speak for or against this application.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. And I'll close the public hearing at 7:27 p.m. Now let's move along. We have revocation of PL 2019-0093 SU, Leonard and Layton, 67 and 79 Maiden Lady Cove. And another boundary line adjustment previously approved. We've been notified apparently the project is not moving forward, meaning the boundary line adjustment has not taken place. Is there any, is the applicant present or any representative of the applicant on this one? All right, I'm hearing nothing.
There isn't, Mr. Chairman, but this item was requested by the original applicants because they've changed their plans.
Okay, so we can assume that the applicant does not object to the revocation. I'm going to open a public hearing nonetheless at 7:28 p.m. And are there any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard?
Mr. Chair, nobody has indicated that they wish to speak for or against this application.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. The chair declares the public hearing closed at 7:28 p.m. 9V5 PL 2021-0008 SU and 0021 CUP. This is 224 Endicott Street East. Proposal to construct 2 duplex condominiums for 4 units total. And a waiver that had been requested for outdoor lighting and landscaping and sidewalks. And
Before you do that, Mr. Chair, can we do the revocations?
oh, that's right. This one isn't a revocation, is it? All right. So before the board right now are 4 items pending revocation. The White Oaks property, New Hope, and Bay Street, and Maiden Lady Cove. Does anyone care to make a motion regarding the revocation of these 4 projects?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question,
Yes, Chief.
and it's actually more for staff. Do we know anything about this agreement, or maybe there's one or something that related to New Hope one that maybe you guys know about?
No, this is new information to us. I could speculate on a couple of things of what it might be about, but I could be entirely wrong, so I won't. If I may, I would suggest that you move forward with the other 3 and not do that one, and that would be totally fine for us.
Well, is there any reason why we shouldn't revoke, since it's been represented to us that a new plan is in the works?
I don't know what the nature of that item is, and
well,
there's 2
issues. There's 2 issues, though.
Yeah, I think I'd rather err on the caution, the side of caution. And this subdivision's been hanging out there for 14 years. Another month or 2 is not going to make any difference.
All right, then. Well, the staff recommendation is that we do not include 05006 SU, et cetera, New Hope Drive, in that motion. And are there any members of the board that wish to be heard regarding that issue? All right, sensing none then. The issue before us is whether the other three properties, the other three developments would be revoked because the project was not completed by the completion dates.
Peter, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the revocation of 3 of those 4, with the exception of the revocation for 05006 SU and 05007 CUP for further investigation, for information that was brought to the light of the board, but the approval of the other 3.
All right, so the motion is to revoke the other 3 and I guess leave New Hope on the table. Is that fair? Is
I'll
there a
second
second?
that.
Is there a second? There is a second from the chief. Is there any discussion on the motions, on the motion to revoke? All right, sensing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Delvecchio,
Favor the motion.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Rick Beati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, now PL 2021-0008 SU and 0021 CUP. 224 Endicott Street East. It's a proposal to construct 2 duplex condominiums for a total of 4 residential units. And there are also waivers requested for outdoor lighting, landscaping, and sidewalks. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I am.
All right. Would you identify yourself for the record and let us know what you're up to?
My name is Roland Mainville. I own Ram Clarendon LLC. I've owned this land for quite a while, I think 2004, 2005. We previously had 12 units approved on this land. Back at that time, we had a lot of units going on and the market was not conducive to building. So we extended a couple of times and then let the permits run out. Since my partner Mark and I, he moved away, I bought him out, and we need to do something with this. So what we want to do is build something smaller and basically nicer. 4 units, 2 duplexes. Pretty much that's it. We've met with conservation. We've met with all the departments and we've got all the feedback back, which has all been really well. So really want to ask if there's any other questions that we can answer. I have Jeff Lewis here from North Point Engineering. If there's any technical questions, he can answer them.
Can we get clarification on what the waivers are that you're looking for?
Hi, thank you. My name is Jeff Lewis from North Point Engineering. I see that you're looking at the site plan there. So there's, I believe, 3 waivers we're requesting. The first is from the landscaping requirement. Since these are 4 units, they're 2 duplex buildings. The intent is really to provide a limited common area around the front, side, and rear of each unit, so that the unit owners will be able to plant and maintain their own landscaping around the units. So we did not provide a landscape planting plan, and we are asking a waiver for that since it is a requirement of the site plan regulations. We did have a recommendation, which I believe is in your report from staff, from the Conservation Commission, that we provide the unit owners with lists of native plant species recommendations for landscape plantings around the building, which we absolutely can do. The second one is related to that. It's really the lighting. We're not proposing any pole mounted lights out here. And we'll just be having some residential style lights, lamps on the buildings in front of the garages. So we didn't provide any lighting plan that you'd normally see with a typical, commercial site plan or a larger multifamily development. So we did ask for a waiver from that, since it is a checklist item. We are just proposing kind of garage downcast lights. And the last waiver is a sidewalk. There's a requirement for sidewalk. This is Endicott Street East, which is a state road. There is no sidewalk out there. It's an open roadway with drainage ditches and no curb. So to put a sidewalk out there would be very difficult to do. We don't think that DOT would allow us to put one out there. It would really serve no purpose, and it would be a big offsite improvement to install drainage along that whole section of roadway. So those are the three waivers.
Can you explain why these waivers are necessary? What is unusual about the development that requires us to deviate from the ordinance?
Yeah, so I think that, one at a time, basically, the requirement for a sidewalk, I think what's unusual here is that there are no sidewalks out there right now. So you have a sidewalk basically to nowhere. And it is a state road. It's not a road that the city maintains. So I'm not sure that the city has the ability to dictate a sidewalk be installed out there. It would be very complicated from a drainage perspective when you have a sidewalk, unless you're adding a curb to the edge of that road. You'd have to have the sidewalk set back quite a ways, which would potentially put on the other side of a ditch. And it's a complicated request that probably would not be able to be fulfilled since it is a state road. So that's one, the argument against having a sidewalk out there. And again, the landscaping requirement, this is duplex units. One of the options that we talked about that Roland was going to do was to subdivide this lot so that he'd have one building on one side and the other building on the other, in which case it would just be a 2-lot subdivision. He is allowed to put a duplex unit on each lot. He would not need to have a landscape plan if he would just have a building permit. In fact, he does have a building permit for that first building, units 1 and 2. He already has a building permit for that. He's not required to provide a landscape plan for that or a lighting plan. He was able to pull a building permit. What he'd rather do, rather than subdivide the lot, he'd rather have this, set this up as a condominium so that these 4 units will all be one condominium. They'll have shared access drive, one driveway off of Endicott Street East rather than 2, one water service connection to serve all 4 units rather than separate services from the water main at Endicott Street. So this is the preferred method to do this, is a 4-unit condominium rather than 2 separate lots. So I guess that's the justification for no landscape plan or lighting plan, because essentially this is like a 2-lot subdivision that would not necessitate that. And it is a small scale development.
Just out of curiosity, where is the nearest sidewalk to that property?
I don't have the answer to that. Is it? I'm not sure.
We're talking about 11B, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the nearest sidewalk, as far as you know, would be the intersection of Route 3, perhaps?
I don't know. I
I don't
wouldn't
want
venture to guess. I have no idea.
Okay. I'm just curious. All right. Are there any questions of the applicant by members of the board?
I have a question, Peter.
Certainly.
And maybe Dean can answer this if the applicant can't. If they would have put a sidewalk on there, they couldn't put it on the Bates right away, right? I mean, it would have to go back. I mean, it would have to go back into their property quite a ways, wouldn't it?
Right.
several-
I mean, if you were to require a sidewalk, they would have to get approval from DOT. And sometimes they allow that and sometimes they don't. It sometimes depends on who you're talking to. I will say this, though, that a little bit further down the road, at the Sterling Drive up to Colonial or Plantation, I guess it is. That's a very short distance. When Governor Estates was created, there was a requirement for the sidewalk to be put in between those two streets. If you go by there today, you would not know the sidewalk is there. It has not been maintained. The state will not maintain them, and the city has no way of getting out there. It's overgrown, it's covered with leaves and grass and et cetera. It's grown up. I mean, it's there, but it's not really a sidewalk. And the likelihood of the exact same thing happening at this location is very high, because the state may allow to put in the sidewalk, but they are not going to maintain it. And this, as you know, the city has no way of, realistically getting out there to do sidewalk maintenance on a regular basis.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, Peter, I'd like to follow up on that with Dean.
Sure.
So Dean, so the maintenance of the sidewalk, once it's put down, that becomes the city's responsibility and not the property owner?
Correct. It's not the property owner because it would be in the right of way. And what happened with the Governor's Crossing situation was the city and the state went into an agreement, and the state says you can put the sidewalk there, but we're not maintaining it. It's entirely up to you. And that's the only condition that they would allow the sidewalk to go there.
Because it's in fact in the state's right of way then, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff? Well,
I have a
sensing none. Oh, yes, go ahead, Brett.
Dean, no, it's Rich.
Sorry, Rich, I'm sorry.
Dean, has DPW weighed in on any concerns with, I know abutters with runoff below there?
We have had a discussion with one of the abutters. The way the stormwater is designed, it is going from the driveways and the roof lines. It's going to the existing wetlands that are on the applicant's property. And there is already some natural drainage across the land. It goes in a northeasterly direction to the upper right-hand corner of the applicant's property. That's the direction of flow. There is some, I don't know, there are some wet areas on adjacent properties that I suspect are naturally occurring. And I don't see that there's anything that's going to change there.
Okay, because I know that is a maintenance issue that they are in there quite often, putting additional salt and sand down.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
Oh, hell, Peter, I'm sorry, I do.
Don't be sorry, Mr. St. Clair.
Pain in the butt, I know. But Dean, I'm just concerned. Do you see any downside at all to not requiring the lighting and or the landscaping from your point of view or the department's point of view?
Well, we would get to the staff's report probably after the public hearing, right?
Well, you asked if we had any questions, so that's why I was asking.
Oh,
But
yeah, that's true.
If they were going to be putting in some pole lights or things of that nature, then we would like to see a lighting plan. Basically the lighting plan shows what kind of lights you're going to have and the foot candle intensity that's going to occur around them. Since they're not going to have any pole lamps, they're only going to have standard residential downward cast lights that will be attached to the sides of the building. There really is no necessary. There's no need for us to look at that.
Is that a condition that you're recommending in your staff report? That the
Yeah,
lighting
we have
be
no
done?
problem. We have no problem waiving the lighting plan
Okay,
or the landscaping plan.
all right. All
Thank
right, any
you.
other questions? All right, sensing none, we're gonna open a public hearing on this, 7:46 PM Eastern Standard Time. Are there any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard? Any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard?
Mr. Chair, nobody has indicated online that they wish to speak for or against this application.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'll close the public hearing, 7:46 PM. Well, Dean, I guess my question is, does it say somewhere in here that the lighting be downcast and it be mounted on the building or something like that?
That's a requirement that we will cover when they pull their building permit.
Okay,
So
all right.
you have our staff recommendation. We are approving or recommending approval.
Yeah.
There's really nothing unusual here. I would draw your attention to number 2A under I. There is already vegetation along the street, and there's a
Yep.
number of trees. We are asking them to maintain some of those trees along the street so that there will be a natural tree canopy there. And we also need to review the condominium documents before they get registered with the Attorney General's office.
Okay,
Other than that, everything else is pretty much standard. You will need to take 3 votes on this. The first vote would be the waiver for the lighting and landscaping plan. The second vote would be the waiver for the sidewalk. And then the third vote would be for the
Approval.
site plan approval.
all right then. What is the pleasure of the board?
I have a question, Peter.
Sure, Mr. Billo.
For Dean. I don't know whether, I just feel like we're being smoke and mirrored here and no one's talking about the CUP for the wetlands, which normally we are kind of concerned about. And this doesn't look like just an encroachment into the buffer, but at the one point, it's almost into the actual wetland. And the close proximity to the edge of those buildings to the actual wetlands themselves, with the steep grade going down to it and the stormwater catchment thing, I don't see how the drainage on this is going to work with those stormwater structures without really affecting those wetlands.
Thank you, Brett, for bringing that up. Yes, I did not mean to gloss over that. As you recall from, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, we had the presentation concerning the updates to the stormwater ordinance and our shoreline protection ordinance that the Conservation Commission is proposing. Under those updates, this property would not need a CUP because the wetlands are small enough that they would be exempt from the buffers. The wetlands themselves need to be preserved, but they would be exempt from the buffers. So therefore, they would not need a CUP. However, it was just a matter of timing. The application was already in, and so the decision was made to continue on and asking for the CUP. Now, that does not in itself minimize your concern. I get that. We have reviewed the proposed stormwater maintenance, and essentially what they're creating is a couple of like rain gardens that will hold the water and hopefully much of it will percolate into the land. But you are right, some of it is going to spill into the wetlands. Just as now, if you have a severe rainstorm, the surface water, that's where it's going to go. And it really should not be any additional amount of water going into the wetlands than is occurring at this time. Does that answer your question, Brett?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I have to push the button. I just, I don't see it being equal to or less than, because the additional impervious surface is added. And it looks like the corner of that one unit is 30 feet off of the actual small wetland there. And the slope, there is no stormwater control between that edge of the roof line and that wetland. The slope goes right down into the wetland. So basically you have everything coming off the roof. And if we go in there, okay, maybe the driveway's going into those two rain gardens, which eventually discharge probably 40 feet from that wetland. But the roof line there is no stormwater control in between that. It slopes right down into the wetland. But I guess if you tell me you've reviewed it and it works, I have to go with that. But it doesn't really look like it from that one structure to me.
I understand your concern. I think that what we could do, and if you'd like to add a provision here in the staff recommendations, I'm okay with that. But I think that we could require at the building permit level to have drip edge treatment for that building, so that we control the runoff from the roof.
That sounds like a good idea. You think
You know,
that would be
either do gutters and make sure the gutters, you know, go to the rain gardens, or we could do the crushed stone type of treatment right at the underneath the eaves to contain most of the stormwater right there.
well, we don't want untreated stormwater going in directly into a wetland, right?
I think Brett brings up a valid point, and I think that is something that could occur. I don't think it's a major issue, but it could occur, and I think we can address it.
What did Conservation Commission have to say?
That issue did not come up with them.
All right.
That I'm aware of.
All right. Any other questions for staff or for the applicant? All right, well, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a second. If I hear sidewalks to nowhere one more time, I swear my brain is going to explode. And it's not, I mean, I have an aversion to that going all the way back to the early 2000s when I was on the board. It bothers me. I understand the need for us to have the power to waive a requirement, a legal requirement. But I think we have to keep in mind that the purpose for that ordinance is to increase and improve the infrastructure of the city. And as I think we've talked about in prior meetings, the city needs to be in a position where they can step up and connect these sections of sidewalk to nowhere and to maintain sidewalks that are constructed. Because if we're going to make applicants build sidewalks, it has to be with the understanding that they will be maintained. I am distressed to learn that there's a stretch along that road where the sidewalk has been neglected to the point where it's not usable. That was the representation that I got. We need to address that, and I think perhaps we'll talk about it more in the master plan steering committee, but it's also an issue that the board needs to keep in mind too. We are the gatekeepers, and we are also the ones that are supposed to see that the ordinances are complied with unless there are compelling reasons not to do it. We've been, I think, as you know, as a bureaucracy, we have swung back and forth over the years. And I'm concerned that we're defeating the very purpose for which these requirements were put in, whether it's street trees or underground utilities or whatever. It again, you know, ask yourself, what is the purpose or the intent of that legislation? Well, clearly, it's to improve the infrastructure, and sometimes that's the only way it's going to get done. Public Works will come in and say, if you want me to build all these new sidewalks, then give me millions of dollars. And, you know, point well taken. But we should be mindful of this whenever we act on such waiver requests. All right, soapbox is done. Anybody wish to comment any further on this?
I'm new here, but I would like to say something.
Certainly, Susan.
The perspective of the landscaping and the lighting, going back to that, it was asked to be done. They don't want to do it. I want to know why it was asked to be done and why should we waive that?
It's a requirement in our site plan regulations that when you do a full site plan, which this is, that these are the types of things that will be included in the plan. And one of those things is a lighting plan, and one of them is a landscaping plan.
Okay, so all new infrastructure that is going up is really, it's cohesive across the board. These are the types of things that are being asked for?
To some degree, yes, that's a true statement. You know, from a lighting plan standpoint, we are trying, we want to see what the foot candle illumination is going to be so that the light is not spilling out into adjacent property. You know, in this case, you don't really have adjacent property that's real close. But in other parts of the city, particularly in the commercial district where you have a business that may be next to an apartment house, if they're going to add light, we want to make sure that the light is not spilling into the adjacent property. And that's why that's a perfect example of why we would want to require a lighting plan. And there are other reasons. And if you're in multifamily or like a larger condominium development, then you probably are going to have some form of light in parking areas. And again, we want to see where the light is going so that you know, people within the units have a right to, you know, being able to sleep at night and not have too much light coming through their window. But also the same is true of abutters. And so those are the reasons for those two requirements. Landscaping, same thing. I don't think it would come as to any surprise that if we did not require landscaping in the checklist and say you got to do it, that there would be some projects that would come in that would have little or no landscaping proposed. And so that's why it's there. In this case, I don't see any issues with lighting. And I don't see really any issues with landscaping as it's been presented, that the landscaping will be up to the individual unit owners. And again, that would be one of the things that we would be looking for in their condo documents to make sure that that is explicitly expressed so that people buying a unit are aware that would be one of their responsibilities.
Thank you, Dean. I think another reason too is the downcast lighting decreases light pollution, meaning it decreases our ability to see the stars and such. And these waivers are basically waivers of a page or two that's attached to the application. In other words, a lighting plan is just that, where the light pole is going to be and what is the intensity of the light. And the representation, I believe, tonight is that there will be no light poles, that the lights will be downcast and mounted on the buildings to allow access and egress. So, and there isn't going to be a lit parking lot. Is that correct? And is that what I heard correctly?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's a good question, Susan. Very good question.
Well, I'm just looking at the overall scheme of things, and I understand what you're talking about with the lighting and being careful how that's going to affect the people that live there. I would say from a standpoint of looking at it from the city, and we want to see aesthetically how nice things look as they are being constructed. I do think that since this is a condominium project that's going on, it's more of a cohesive aesthetic look overall. And if you give each property owner their own due diligence on taking care of their own landscaping, everything is going to look different from one another. That could be good or bad, but I think aesthetically, I think that the person developing the association, the development, should have a cohesive landscape format in the plan. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. There's an opportunity in the order, in the approval. We can add a specific representation or requirement as to the lighting, for example, to put the representation that the applicant made, that it will be downcast and mounted on the buildings, as so that the document will explain why the waiver is appropriate. But that's, again, you're absolutely right. These are the kinds of things that we are charged with taking a look at. All right, so any other comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Delvecchia.
I'm okay with the sidewalk and lighting waiver, but the landscape plan, unit 4 is only 3 or 4 feet away from the setback, with the driveway extending into the setback. And it would just be nice to know, it's okay to say, well, we recommend to the owners that they put up some trees, but nothing's going to say they're going to do it. So I would like to see some trees along that edgeway. It looks like there's a stone wall there. Back to trees. It'd just be a good idea, since that unit is so close to the road, that there would be some evergreen trees there for aesthetics.
So are you suggesting that that be added to the approval?
I would like to see a landscape plan, yes.
Okay, so you're opposed to the waiver request on the landscape plan?
Correct.
All right. Anyone else want to be heard on that?
I oppose as well.
Okay. So it sounds like we have an issue. We're going to have to take, as Dean has pointed out, several votes. Dean, aren't we taking each waiver request separately? I think you put
given the comments, that would be the safest thing to do. Yes. So you'd have
Okay.
4 votes.
All right. So then the first issue, let me scroll down here. I'm going to find the document. Give me a second. All right. Okay. So outdoor lighting. The application states that the project is 2 residential duplex buildings. Outdoor lighting will be consistent with single-family residential neighborhoods. And it's my understanding that board members have suggested that that language be included in the approval itself, and perhaps the word downcast lighting be included in that. So the first waiver is the 6.6.5, which is outdoor lighting. What is the pleasure of the board? The issue is whether or not to grant the waiver.
Once again, Mr. Chair, the outdoor lighting, I think, is okay to waive that, and the sidewalks. But I would like to see a guaranteed buffer zone of vegetation between the units and the road.
Okay.
Peter, shouldn't we vote on the actual site plan first? Because if that doesn't get approved, the waivers don't matter.
Yeah, that had occurred to me, but I usually defer to Mr. Trefethan in such matters. I have no objection to doing it in that order. Does staff?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So forget everything I just said. The issue now is, scroll down through here, whether to grant the conditional use permit. Oh, hang on a second. I don't know why I can't find things on my computer when I need them. De-dum. I've lost my place completely. Isn't that wonderful? Ah, there we go. The issue is the waiver of lighting. The docket number is PL 2021-0008SU and 0021 CUP. Does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the requested waiver for outdoor lighting plan? All right. There is no motion there.
I'll do that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. So was that Ms. Jenna?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver for lighting for application PL 2021-0008SU.
Thank you. Is there a second to Ms. Jenna's motion?
Second.
A second by Ms. Susi. Any discussion, further discussion on this motion? Everyone understand the nature of the motion? All right, so this is a motion to approve the waiver for outdoor lighting. May we have a roll call, please?
I approve.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, the motion carries. Let's see, landscaping. There's a waiver requested for landscaping. The motion can be made in the negative if someone wishes to make the motion to deny.
Can I say something on the landscape?
Sure.
That, and everybody should be concerned, but the reason why we submitted a sample plan of condo docs was partly because the conservation recommended that all the units had the same plantings, and they recommended to us what kind of plantings they wanted. Whether you want the builder to do that or leave it in the condo docs where the condominium owners have to do that, that's okay. But there will be plantings. If you want to be guaranteed that there's plantings, that Roland will do the plantings around the building. There is a buffer right now from the street to the units. We left some key trees there. We took down trees, but we left some key trees there. So we had a buffer, and the plan is to keep a mound there, which is there now, and plant, whether it's arborvitaes or other deciduous trees, so there is screening there. If a plan needs to be done, that's great, but know that I've owned this for a long time and want to do a nice job, and it will be done. So as far as plantings around the unit, if you want the builder to do that with the recommendation of the conservation, with the plants that they recommended, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, would someone like to make a motion regarding the waiver of the landscaping plan?
So I guess we have to make a motion to deny the waiver, since Roland's going to include the landscaping with the buildings. So I'll
Okay.
make a motion that we deny PL 2021 0008 SU 0021 Cup at 224 Endicott Street.
The landscaping waiver.
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Mr. St. Clair has seconded the motion. Any further discussion on the motion to deny the landscaping requirement, the waiver?
I just want to make a comment. I understand where the builder and the developer is coming from, that they just.
You tailed off there at the end, Brett. I didn't hear you.
Okay, how about now?
Yep, better.
I understand where they're coming from, that they don't want this so much to look like a housing development, that it should be more personalized. I'm going to vote in favor of denying it, but I think I just want to add in that their landscaping plan, as far as I'm concerned, can be as minimalistic as the owner had just mentioned. Just put in there where you want to plant some arborvitae, put in there where you're leaving the existing trees, and maybe planting beds around the house. Leave that up to the homeowner.
Well, and it's also possible to require the applicant to note on the plan the types of plantings and who's going to be responsible for maintenance. Is that correct, Mr. Trefethan?
You just asked your question.
I'm sorry, Peter, what was the question again?
Would be possible to require the applicant to add a note to the plan, the site plan, that defines what, or it specifies the type of plantings, where they'll be located, and who will be responsible for their maintenance? Just add a note to an existing plan?
Yes, and that would be fine. And a follow-up question to that would be, do you want staff to review that proposed plan, or do you want it to come back to the board?
I really don't know how to answer that. If the motion carries, then the waiver will be denied and they'll have to produce the plan. If the motion is defeated.
It could be, and you're right, it could be just a note on the plan to do plantings per recommendations of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, so then I'll go back.
And also the additional screening along the street.
I'll go back to the maker of the motion then and ask if adding a note to the plan regarding the plantings and the maintenance thereof, would that satisfy the maker of the motion?
Yes, I trust Dean he understands the nature of my motion, so I could go with, we don't have to review it again and vote on it. I'll go on the board's recommendation.
All right.
Staff recommendation.
Okay, so then when we get to the approval, we'll add language that puts the landscaping information right on the plan.
Very good.
So are you withdrawing the motion, sir?
No.
Okay, so the motion still is to deny the waiver request.
Correct.
All right, is there any further discussion on that?
The only thing is, we don't have to bring it back next month before the board. We can go on staff's recommendation, what Roland turns into now.
So I want to be clarified where I would have thought the motion would have been motion to accept with the approval of the city municipal approval of plants, not where it can't be denied and then you're going to let me do it with their approval. So I would make the motion that I approve with Dean's approval of the plan.
Well, that is not the motion that's pending.
I
however.
understand, but I just want to make sure we're clear, because if we're denied, I don't know how Dean can approve a denied plan.
Well, we haven't approved the
We're
plan yet. This
denying
is,
that you
we're,
don't have to turn in a plan. So you do have to turn in a plan, and we'll go on, I'll let
Okay.
staff
As long as
approve
we're on the
that,
same page, I'm good.
correct?
all right.
Thank you.
So, are there any other comments or questions from the members of the board? All right, I'm going to call the question then. The motion is to deny the applicant's request for a landscaping waiver. May we have a call of the roll, please?
Mike Dellavecchia,
Approve.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Piatti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, moving along. We have a waiver request for sidewalks. What is the board's pleasure on that?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, or maybe for Dean, if I can.
Certainly.
It's in the past, I know it's been a little while since I think this happened, but when a sidewalk waiver was granted, the money that would have been spent on the sidewalk was then taken and put into sidewalk development somewhere else. Am I correct on that, Dean?
On occasion, that has been done. We have been advised by legal counsel that we can do that if we identify ahead of time where that other place may be.
This is,
We were supposed to do a subcommittee, I think, for that to discuss what the
Yeah.
amount should be.
yeah,
And I have had some discussions with Ed, and you know, this is I mean, to be blunt, there is a disconnect between the requirement of the planning board for sidewalks, and I'm not arguing that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying that there's a disconnect between the requirement of sidewalks and what the DPW would like to have. And so we need to work that issue, and it's not a simple issue, so it's not going to be resolved like tomorrow.
Dean, to follow up on Charlie's question, that's an impact fee, isn't it? Is that the legal justification for requiring an applicant to donate money to the sidewalk fund or something?
Well, I mean, we do have an impact fee, which they will pay for this project. And part of the impact fee is allocated to DPW to use for capital projects, which could be sidewalks. But the one instance, and there may have been others, but the one instance that I'm aware of is the Union Avenue apartment complex that was done 5 or 6 years ago, and help me with the name, Colleen, right up.
River's Edge.
What is it?
River's Edge.
River's Edge. There was a sidewalk waiver granted for part of that, and there was money set aside for sidewalk improvement on Arch or River Street. So, I mean, it was for a specific reason.
So,
and that money is still sitting there, I might add, but
how is the amount of the fee calculated?
Just, you know, take money from a developer and say, you know, we're going to use it for sidewalks somewhere. We've been advised that we can't do that.
And the other question is, how would you determine what the amount of the fee would be? Does the applicant have to get an estimate as to the construction cost and then submit that, or would the city?
I believe that at, like, for instance, on River's Edge, I believe that there was a formula for how much X number of feet of sidewalk costs, and that was what was given. I mean, we can find out that information, but I don't advise you to try to do that in this situation, because we don't have a specific project or place to use that money.
Understood. Well, all right. Is there any other discussion about the sidewalk waiver?
Yeah, I want to, Peter, I'd like to say something.
Certainly.
I agree with your comments at the beginning of this discussion on the sidewalks. I think the city, again, it's almost like the trees. I think the city is admitted in not having sidewalks and along our public roads and streets. I have noticed, I know Dean said earlier about Public Works saying, you know, how are we going to get out there? But I've noticed pleasantly this year, seeing sidewalks being plowed up on Endicott Street north, I guess it is, west of Lakeside Avenue or north of Lakeside Avenue, and even on Lakeside Avenue on occasion. I'm not going to vote for the waiver. I'm not going to vote against it. The whole thing is really irritating me. So I'm going to abstain on that vote. But it is something that I don't think we should be, I hate to get cliche, kicking it down the road. This has been talked about as long as I've been on the planning board. And Peter, going back when you were first on the planning board. So I just hope that people start getting really irritated about this. I hold my breath every night when I'm on Weirs Boulevard and I see people in dark clothes walking on the side of the road. It's just a matter of time, not when, but not if, but when. And so that's all. Thank you.
I would suggest that we prepare ourselves to make this an issue for the Capital Improvements Plan Committee for next year. That's where the Department of Public Works would come in and tell us how much money they propose to spend on sidewalks, street improvements, repairs, things of that sort. But what we've been told recently is that they don't have the resources to maintain existing sidewalks in some areas. It's been represented to us tonight that the city had no way of maintaining any sidewalk that would be constructed along Endicott Street East. But I mean, surely they have trailers and there's a way, and there are sidewalks at the weirs that get plowed, are they not? So,
Agreed.
yep, we need to look at that, and I think we need to look at it soon. So perhaps we could put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll have some conversations between now and then with staff and anyone else. Because what I'm concerned about is if we're going to deny waiver requests, that we have some criteria on which to make that decision. And if we grant it conditioned upon the applicant paying some fairly determined sum into some as yet uncreated fund of some sort, you know, the sidewalk fund, which probably doesn't exist. That would be the way to do it going forward. It has to be fairly applied, and there has to be a scientific method for determining how much the sidewalk would cost. And we need a commitment from Public Works to maintain any such sidewalks that are indeed created, or where, have Public Works determine where the money would be spent. But nonetheless, we are still considering a waiver request for this applicant on 224 Endicott Street East. Any other questions or comments regarding this waiver request?
I would like to make a motion to approve the waiver for the sidewalk request for application PL 2021-0008 SU.
A motion by Ms. Jenna. Is there a second?
I'll second
that.
Okay. Susan Hodgkins is it Hodgkins? Hodgkins, I'm sorry. Is the second on that motion. Any further discussion? All right, sensing none, I'll ask for a call of the roll, please.
Mike Delvecchio,
I'm gonna abstain, please.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
I abstain.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
No.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
No. So we have 2 abstentions, 2 noes, and the rest were ayes.
5 yes, 2 noes, 2 abstentions.
All right, so the motion carries. The waiver is granted. And now we are dealing with the site plan and conditional use permit, PL 2021-0008 SU, 0021 CUP.
Mr. Chair, if you will, I would like to have the motion include the staff recommendations and to amend the staff recommendations, section I, to add a C to include landscaping information on the plan according to the recommendations of the Conservation Commission, screening along the street as recommended by the planning board, and for that plan to be reviewed by staff.
Would someone care to make a motion including these conditions?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair. Mike.
All right. We have a motion to approve the 224 Endicott Street East. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? This is a motion to approve overall this project.
Mike, can you add a condition in there that we discussed for the stormwater runoff from the roofs?
Oh, good point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make that D, 2D.
Okay. Any other suggestions as to conditions or modifications to the plan submitted? All right, well, sensing none. Motion made and seconded. May we have a call the roll, please?
Mike Delvecchio,
Favor?
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Burnett.
Yes. The motion carries, and the permit is approved with the conditions that were stated. Thank you. Okay, PL 2021-0015 CUP. It's a wetland. 18 Gilman Street. Proposal to construct a single-family dwelling
Yeah, they continue that.
with
one.
attached garage within the 50-foot wetland buffer
You're welcome, sir.
and a waiver request for underground utilities. Is the applicant here? And if so, would you come up and say hi? Mr. Moore, do we have an applicant?
Yep, I'm promoting him right now.
Oh, okay. He's being promoted.
Mr. Chair, you need to accept this application first.
Is the application in order and ready for acceptance, Mr. Trefethan?
Yes.
All right, then. Would someone care to make a motion to formally accept the application?
I'll make a motion to accept application PL 2021-0015 CUP.
Motion made by Ms. Jenna. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Chief Beatty. Any discussion?
Yes. This is
Yes.
This is going very quickly. Has this been discussed in previous meetings?
What we're doing here is we're simply accepting the application and we are not approving.
Okay, okay, I'm
This is
sorry.
a preliminary step that sometimes happens the same night as the public hearing. Sometimes it happens earlier. But we have to hold a public hearing before we can approve or deny the project overall.
Thank you, sorry.
Yep, no problem. Don't be sorry. Good question. All right, where were we? Oh, yes. The applicant.
So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Dan Higginson with Higginson Land Services. Looking to build a 28 by 36 house with a 24 attached garage on Gilman Street. It's the last, Gilman Street's it's a small road that's already built out. This is the last vacant lot on it. And a portion of the building that we're proposing, a portion of the garage would be in the buffer, about 49 square feet. And we're proposing a 933 square foot impact to the buffer for a backyard. We've spoke with the Conscom. They didn't have any problems with our proposal. There were some trees that were already cut within the buffer, so we worked with them to come up with a replanting plan. We have some small swales to capture roof and driveway runoff. There'll be a little bit of runoff from the garage. It won't be captured in those swales, but the whole backyard it's kind of dished. It doesn't show in the 2-foot contours, but it's lower in the center of the backyard than the edge of the stream within the existing tree line. So we're doing the best we can to capture runoff before we get to the buffer, and then the buffer itself kind of acts like a dished out area where water would settle before getting into the wetland.
All right. Any questions from the members of the board for the applicant? All right. Let's go to the public hearing then. We're opening the public hearing at 8:32 p.m. Are there any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard?
Mr.
Any
Chair, nobody
abutters?
from the public has indicated that they wish to speak for or against the application.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mora. That means we're going to close the public hearing now at 8:33 p.m. And we will listen to the staff report, please.
This application has gone to the Conservation Commission. The original plan called for the garage to be lined up with the rear of the house, and they recommended that they push it forward to get as much as possible out of the buffer zone, and the applicant has done that. And they also have recommended vegetation of certain kinds in the buffer area behind the house, and the applicant has agreed to do that. And we'll do the silt sock when they're doing their construction. Staff recommends approval of the CUP and the waivers. In this case, the waiver is for underground utilities. This is a mature neighborhood. All of the other houses in the neighborhood are overhead utilities, and unfortunately, in this case, the utility poles are across the street, which would necessitate cutting into the street to do underground utilities, which we don't think, given the circumstances, is in the overall best interests of the city. So we're in favor of the waiver for underground utilities.
I think that's consistent with past practice where we're dealing with infill development.
Correct.
Where, somebody refresh my memory, where is Gilman Street?
It is,
Behind the high school.
yeah, basically.
The first left after, I mean, on
After
Guilford
Morrill
Avenue.
Street. It's on the other side. So you have Morrill Street, and the houses on Morrill Street back up to the brook. The other
Yep.
side of the brook is Gilman.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. And this is the last lot, is what we're hearing in this development. All right. Any questions for staff? All right. Well, if there are no questions, would someone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application PL 2021-0015 CUP
You're on a
and the
roll.
waiver for the underground utilities as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We have a motion from Ms. Jenna. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second. Mr. Bellevaux, any discussion on the motion? Well, sensing none, then I will call the question. May we have a call of the roll, please, Ms. Graham?
Mike Dellavecchio,
Approve.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Piatti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Belvaux,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
Yes. And the motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, moving right along. We are going to the weirs. PL 2021-0016 site plan. This is 59 Doe Ave, a craft beer exchange is the name of the company. It's a proposal to add 24 parking spaces to support 2,400 square foot outdoor seating. And there's a sidewalk waiver. Is this application in order for acceptance?
Yes.
All right, well then the chair would entertain a motion to accept this application for consideration.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bellevaux. Is there a second?
Second.
The second has been made. Any discussion? Sensing none, may we have a call the roll, please?
Mike Dellavecchia,
My favor.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Piatti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Belvaux,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion passes, unanimous vote. Is the applicant present, wish to be heard?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. And
Good evening.
members of the planning board, Peter Howard from Stephen Smith and Associates. And I must say, we are now a division of Du Bois and King Incorporated. I think this is the first presentation under our new ownership. But anyway, I'm here representing Keith and Monique O'Leary. The tax map 154-64-1. It is a 3-acre parcel on 59 Doe Avenue in the Weirs. It is up at the top of the hill, looking over the Weirs. It is in the commercial resort zone. Mr. Larry is not able to be with us tonight, so I'll be answering your questions. I just mentioned that in the summer of 2019, July of 2019, we were here with this same site plan. Mr. O'Leary had got it approved. There was at that time 2,400 square feet of gross floor area for a pub with an outside deck and for craft beer, retail sales, and also dining. What has happened is because of COVID-19, and first of all, he has made a great improvement of this old house that's up there. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really done a great job improving it. But anyway, because of COVID-19 and the restrictions on dining and social distancing and all that, last summer was first year he really operated. He put some tables and chairs outside. And it was very successful. People really enjoyed it and, came back. So he would like to continue that practice officially. And so adding about 2,400 square feet of outdoor space is going to require another 24 parking spaces. So really what we're here to do tonight is get approval for this expansion of the parking area and for this outdoor seating. We're providing lighting, drainage, and some improved walkways to accommodate this additional parking that will be needed. But I will say we are asking for a waiver, and the reason we're asking for is because when we presented the plan in 2019, we asked for the waiver and were granted it. So I guess we're not really asking for anything new at this point, but just continuing the approval that he did get in 2019. And then a new approval for this additional parking. And it's basically because of the COVID, but he found it to be successful. So we'd like to continue it.
It's always good to know that some of our small businesses, although hard hit last year, are surviving. So tell me again why we should grant the sidewalk waiver. Where's the nearest sidewalk?
Nearest sidewalks, I think are down, way down over the hill. This is Doe Avenue, then it heads down towards the Weirs. We're on a pretty narrow right of way in here too, and we would not be able to construct it without getting on our own property, which then it brings up some liability issues as well. So
does it front on any other street but Doe Ave?
No, it corners there on Warner Avenue. You can see it down on the lower left part of the plan.
Okay.
It's kind of corners on that. And then it goes down Doe Ave. It's not located in close proximity to any other properties really where the sidewalk or pedestrian pathways are located.
Okay.
It's not near any intersections with controlled traffic. It's not in close proximity to any schools or community centers, healthcare facilities, playground, shopping centers, et cetera, as the ordinance talks about. So,
And I might add that it's on quite a hill and no one wants to walk up that hill.
Right.
Well, it's not a hazard to aviation either, I hope. All right. So seriously, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Howard? All right. Sensing none, I'm going to open the public hearing at 8:42 p.m. Are there any members of the public or abutters that wish to be heard regarding the brew pub on Doe Ave? Anybody?
Chair, nobody has indicated online or in person here that they're wish to speak for or against the application.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess we will close the public hearing now at 8:43 p.m. and the staff will inform us, please.
Staff recommendations includes approving the waiver again for the sidewalks. We don't believe that this proposal substantially changes the dynamics in the area, that their parking and use is all contained on their site. Not a place that people would normally walk to. Other than that, the recommendations are pretty much normal. There's nothing unusual here going on here.
So what about stormwater drainage?
They are changing their stormwater drainage. They are creating, actually, I think I will let Peter explain that better than I probably can.
All right, thank you, Dean. On the stormwater, when we made this submission in 2019, if you can look at the parking lot that we originally did, it's sort of on the north side of the house. All of that water runoff grades towards the north into a swale, a treatment swale, and then it goes to the far north corner of the property and is outlet by way of a level lip spreader. So what I did on this was I totally isolated the new runoff on the new parking that we're proposing so that it would not mix with the runoff from the original parking that we designed. The new parking area is graded so that it will go to the east or downhill, and it's going to be caught in a swale at the bottom of right at the edge of the parking area, and it will go either left or right or up or down on the plan there as you're looking at it. I've had two catch basins. The water will get into those catch basins. They're deep catch basins, so we can get plenty of, if we need it, for a sump area. But then we're going to go into an oversized perforated pipe, which is going to be surrounded by stone. That's going to provide the storage and treatment needed for any runoff from this parking lot. And it's only runoff from the parking that's going to go into this stormwater system that we're proposing. The catch basin on the lower side of the parking lot, catch basin 102, there's a baffle in there that controls the rate of runoff, if you will. And then when that pipe does fill up and overflow into the outlet pipe, it'll go into another level spreader and then go downhill where it goes today. There is also a little under drain in the stone pipe around the pipe. Some of this water in the stone will infiltrate. Some of it will be released by way of this little under drain pipe so that water won't just sit in this oversized pipe forever. So it's a little bit of a different type of a system, but it gives us a good opportunity to take care of the increase due to the change of the land use here, and yet not build a pond or not have to build a swale, which we really don't have a whole lot of room for. So, and in doing this, we're able to stay out of the buffer around the wetland that is on the lower side of the property. So any questions on that?
No, that was a very detailed answer. Thank you, Mr. Howard. Do the members of the board have any questions for Mr. Howard? All right. Where are we at now? We have held the public hearing and now we're waiting for a motion, are we not?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
That's probably more towards, I guess, staff. It could be to Mr. Howard, but this is just for the parking spaces and the sidewalk waiver, correct? We're not talking about turning the COVID outside seating into permanent approval, correct?
No, we are talking that.
Yes.
He wants to set up the outdoor seating for a permanent basis, hence the need for additional parking. Because last year, when they were doing primarily just outside dining, the existing parking that they already had served that purpose because there was basically no one going inside. So the parking that was there serviced the outside. They're hoping, and I think we're all hoping, that relatively soon, restaurants are going to be able to open up to a greater capacity than they have been recently. And therefore he'll have potentially at some time in the near future, full capacity inside, which the original parking took care of, and also offer the outdoor dining area as an additional seating area, in which case he would need more parking.
So just correct me on the procedural on this. If this was to be approved, once the approval goes, this is still going to have to go through, Dean, this is still going to have to go through fire prevention and other approvals after this, correct?
That would have normally already been done, right?
Well,
yeah, I mean, there's really nothing being no structure being constructed here.
Does the outdoor seating have access to the indoors and the indoors have access to the outdoor seating?
Yes.
Then it could potentially change exits. If you have a full capacity indoors emptying out into a full capacity outdoors that's gated, because it's going to have to be if it has alcohol like it did, it could actually affect numbers. And that's why I bring that up.
That's a very good point. Thank you. I would suggest under, let's see here.
We're talking about the construction of a deck. Is that what we're talking about?
Doesn't matter if you have, it doesn't matter because I mean, if they serve alcohol, so it's going to have to be somehow controlled. And so if you control it, you'd only fit so many people. If you're having a full capacity indoors and it empties into a full capacity outdoors, I'd have to see the plans. I mean, I'm just talking off top without looking at the plans. But this is something for this board as well. We're gonna have dozens of these across the city that we're gonna have to deal with when that full capacity reopens back up, because we, granted a lot of waivers for these reasons, administratively. So it's just something, this won't be the last time we hear this.
Chief, would your concern be addressed if we made it a condition that they provide emergency access and egress, all that, and that the fire department assess the life safety issues?
Yeah, I mean, I would say would have to redo the certificate of occupancy for we'll call it a complex.
Well,
it's no different. This, it's a good example. If we do this, during bike week where everybody's normally indoors and then they want to add a fenced in outside, right outside their building, we do that all the time, but we have to factor all this stuff in. So
this is a permanent expansion, as I understand it. So it certainly should be subject to review by the fire department, I would think.
And along with that, right, essentially, we're saying maybe doubling their occupancy. So doesn't that also require them to have more restroom facilities and support for the double occupancy?
I don't know, Dean? Do we have a requirement based on number of bathrooms per square foot or something?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I certainly would recommend under I-1, we add an E to have the proposal before construction reviewed by fire department for code issues and the potential increase in capacity. If you want to use, add an F for review of other internal facilities, meaning restrooms, et cetera, then I'm okay with that too.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of the board? All right.
So the motion was to approve with staff, and then we're going to add E and F. Is that everyone's understanding?
Yes. I'm lost at this point. I got to find it on the agenda again. Okay, so the motion, we got to do a motion on the waiver request, do we not?
Probably should to renew it, yes.
Okay. What is the board's pleasure on that? Would someone like to make a motion regarding the sidewalk waiver?
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the sidewalk waiver request for PL 2021-0016 SP.
I'll second.
Second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Well, sensing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Delvecchio,
Favor.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
I abstain.
Kirk Beatty,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Sarah Hodgkins,
Susan.
sorry, Susan Hodgkins. You're muted. She's muted.
Yes. Sorry.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
No.
No.
No. So we have 1 no, 1 abstention, and was that 6?
7.
7. 7 in favor. Motion carries. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we hope you have a successful season.
Application.
Oh, we need to vote on the application.
Oh, we need to vote on the site plan.
Yes.
So we need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve application PL 2021-0016 SP. And that is in regards to staff recommendation and under 1E, review by the fire department to increase capacity. And that would be F for other internal facilities. Did I get
Motion
that all,
made.
Dean?
Yes, thank you.
Motion made by Ms. Jenna. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Belleville. Is there any further discussion on the motion? There being none, we'll call the question. May we have a roll call, please?
Mike Dellavecchio,
Favor.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Belvo,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Motion carries. As I said earlier, good luck. Have a great season.
Thank you very much.
DL 2021-0017 SU, 730 Endicott Street North, proposal for boundary line adjustment. I just got to say, I don't know whoever came up with this scheme to have an Endicott Street North without a south and an Endicott Street East without a west. But that's a question for another day. Is this application in order and ready for acceptance, sir?
Yes.
All right, would someone care to make a motion to accept this application?
I'll make a motion to accept application PL 2021-0017 SU.
Motion made by Ms. Jenna. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chief Biati. Any discussion? All right, call the question. May we have a roll call, please?
Dellavecchio,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biati,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Belvo, Brett,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
yes,
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, the application has been accepted. Is the Endicott, is the application here? Applicant
Yes.
here? All right, would you please identify yourself for the record?
My name is Stephen Grant. I'm the owner of the property. And Dean Clark cannot make it this evening. He is sick and also he's out of power.
Oh, yes, that seems to be widespread. All right. So tell us, what's the purpose for the boundary line adjustment?
The boundary line adjustment is to increase the acreage on the abutting property I purchased. I presently own kitchen counters, 730 Endicott Street, and there was some extra land that I was unable to get to from my piece of property. And I just was going to add it to the abutting piece of property I purchased to increase the development potential.
Is this parcel on the corner of Roller Coaster Road?
No, it's not.
It's a little further
You
north,
know where
right?
Basket World used to be?
Yes.
I own the kitchen store just north of that on Route 3, and this piece of parcel is just beyond the pond of the kitchen store.
Okay. I remember this application from many years ago,
Yeah.
and a sidewalk waiver was discussed at that time.
That's correct.
And I forget whether it was granted or not. Is there a sidewalk there?
There is not. The state did not allow it.
Yes, the right-of-way issue. Yeah, we're gonna have to get them a seat at the table. All right, are there any questions for the applicant? All right, being none, I'm gonna call a public hearing open at 9 p.m. Are there any members of the public or abutters that wish to be heard?
Mr. Chair, nobody has indicated that they wish to speak for or against this application.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. We'll close the public hearing at 9 p.m. Staff recommendation, please.
Staff recommends approval. We have our recommendations. There's nothing unusual going on here. I know that the proposed new boundary line is a little weird, but there is a reason for that. It's so that the existing lot and then the adjacent lot both have enough area and also street frontage to allow them to exist. Just in case there was a question about that.
Okay. And because this isn't a site plan or a CUP, then the sidewalk waiver is not required.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions for staff on this application? All right. Sensing none, what is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve PL 2021-0017 SU for the boundary line adjustment at 730 Endicott North.
Motion made by Chief Beatty. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Jenna. Any further discussion? Sensing none, we'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mike Delavecchio,
Favor.
Sarah Jenna.
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Beatty,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Beliveau,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. All right, the motion carries, and good luck in the future. All right,
Thank you
we're
guys
at,
for volunteering. Thank you for everything.
hey, no problem. We live for this stuff. PL 2021-0018 SP, 1197 Union Avenue, HK Power Sports. They're growing again. Proposal to construct a 50 by 144 foot warehouse with associated drainage and landscaping. Is the application in order and ready for acceptance, Mr. Trefethan?
Yes.
Would someone care to make a motion to accept this application so that it may be considered?
I'll make a motion to accept application PL 2021-0018 SP.
A motion made by Ms. Jenna. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Beliveau. Any discussion on the motion to accept the application? There being none, may we have a roll call, please?
Mike Delavecchio,
Yes.
Sarah Jenna.
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Beatty,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Beliveau,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Application is accepted. And now we would like to hear from the applicant.
My name is Stephen Wally. I'm the owner of the property, and I also own HK Power Sports, the business. This is an accessory warehouse building that we'd like to construct. It's very similar to three other similar sized. It'll be the same construction type as the other three. We've been here in the last year and got boundary line adjustments and purchased the land that was behind the golf cart guy, used to belong to the Bible school. It's almost not visible from Union Avenue in any way. It'll be minimal impact, less than 2,000 feet of pavement. The building itself is about 7,000 feet, and there'll be about a 1,200 square foot lean-to on the south side of it to park some construction equipment and stuff that we have. It will be in character with what we're doing, and we've been there for 36 years, and we keep growing, and we keep trying to keep things organized and stored properly, and this will be an important link to that.
As this is Attorney Phil Brouillard representing Mr. Wally, just want the board to understand that this is just a freestanding building, and the only utility it has is electric for lights. There's no bathroom, there's no water, there's very little. It's just freestanding storage. And we also want the board to know that we've had a chance to review the staff's application, and we agree with all their conditions. And we do need to update the plans to show the electric line running from the last building to this building. And basically, we thank you for your attention tonight. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Attorney Brouillard. Are there any questions for Attorney Brouillard or the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeed, Ms. Susie.
Is this building going to be taller than the other three?
18. It sits slightly higher on the land. The lay of the land climbs up there. I think it's probably detailed on the plan. So I'm guessing that it could be 4 or 5 feet higher on the floor height. And there is a possibility that the building itself would be 2 feet higher than the last building.
The building's about 18 feet high.
Is that at the peak or the
Inside, inside,
at the peak or the eaves?
the peak.
At the peak, okay. All right, any other questions for Mr. Brouillard or Mr. Wally? All right, well, there being none, I'm going to open the public hearing now at 9:06 p.m. Are there any abutters or members of the public that wish to be heard on this application?
Mr. Chair,
Anybody?
nobody else is present or nobody has indicated online that they wish to speak for or against the application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Close the public hearing at 9:07 p.m. And staff.
Yes, staff recommends approval of the plan. This is really just the orderly expansion of the business. We joked at the technical review committee that they were kind of setting up dominoes, and if you knock one building, they're all going to go over, but they're all lined up, and it's nice to see a business being successful and has had the need to expand the way that they have.
I guess I would second that. They've always been not only successful, but responsible business people. All right, any questions for staff on that recommendation? All right, well, there being none, what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion that we approve PL 2021-0018 SP 1197 Union Ave.
Thank you, Chief. We have a motion from Chief Beatty. Is there a second?
Second it. Second.
Seconded by Representative St. Clair. Any further discussion on this motion? Well, since none, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mike Dellavecchia,
Approve.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie St. Clair,
Yes.
Kirk Biotti,
Yes.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Yes.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes. Well, the motion passes. And good luck to you, Mr. Wally.
Thank you very much.
All right. I guess I have a question for you, Dean. Why do we sometimes do just the application acceptance and not the approval on the same night?
If we get to technical review and we believe that everything's in order and is ready to go, then we'll put it on the agenda and you'll have to accept the application. There are some instances where we're close. We think we're close, and there's a couple of outstanding items and that we think will take a little bit longer than the 2 or 3 weeks that occurs between technical review and the actual meeting, and so in which case you would accept the application. That way we can send out notices, et cetera, and then you would review it the next month. Usually it's on more complicated issues.
Right. But in any event, the abutter notices go out
Oh,
prior
yes,
to
yes,
the
yes. Everybody's
application
been,
acceptance.
everything that we've heard tonight has been duly notified and
Okay.
butter notification.
Thank you for that. Is there any new business, anyone?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeed.
Twice tonight, we've granted sidewalk waivers. I don't want to rob developers, but every time we grant a waiver, we're letting junky sidewalks continue. You know, there's plenty of broken down sidewalks we could use $1,000 or so to fix up. And we need to come up with a plan we can't let it keep going and going. A few months ago, we passed one on Massachusetts Avenue, a couple tonight. It adds up. And we should not let those dollars get away. That's all.
Michael, do you think we should like set up a subcommittee or just bring
Well,
this
I
up in the
thought Ed
context
Bonas
of?
was going to come up with a plan. We don't have to charge the people the full amount of what a sidewalk would cost. Even 25% would help. We put it in the coffer and spend the money. Dean says we have money from Riverbank that we've never spent. So there's plenty of broken down sidewalks. There's not a shortage of a need.
Well, perhaps you could do us the favor of doing some research as to whether there is some sort of fund that this money could be put into that would be dedicated to sidewalk construction. And if not, then maybe we could vote to recommend to the city council that that be made law. I mean, we otherwise we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep hearing the phrase sidewalks to nowhere, and you're going to hear my brains pop out of my ears again.
I want you to have a stroke, Peter.
Don't worry about it. At my age, it would probably be a blessing, but I think you'd be the perfect person to head that small committee.
I'll confer with Ed Bonas and see what we can come up with.
There, so the other two officers of the board are going to investigate and report back, which I think is awesome. Don't you think so, Mr. St. Clair?
I couldn't agree more.
Oh, that's a wonderful piece of art you have behind you. Did you do that?
Thank you. No, I'm just changing up my designs here.
Well, yes, we do need to update ourselves once in a while.
Anyway,
old business.
So back to the sidewalk thing. Besides coming up with a fund that the money would go into, I think what needs to happen is the city needs to, however they do it, get a contractor or somebody to come up with the cost per linear foot of, say, constructing a new sidewalk. And like Mike talked about, whether we set 25%, 50% of that cost. If you want a waiver, you have to put that much over the frontage of your property into this fund. And the last part of the whole process is that DPW needs to come up with their own small capital improvement priority list of where sidewalks need to be built or where sidewalks need to be repaired, and prioritize it.
I guess I would agree with that, except to say that I think the DPW shouldn't be at the end of the list. They should be at the beginning. DPW could probably come up with a reasonable estimate per linear foot based on their own practice and the cost of materials. And then if there was an exact formula for determining, and it was applied fairly, for determining how much the fee would be in order to get the waiver, we'd also still need the commitment from DPW to support the improvement of that bit of infrastructure. And I have yet to hear that Public Works is willing to do that. So, in fact, I think we heard representations to the contrary in the capital improvement plan meetings that we held last year, or earlier this year, I guess.
Peter, shouldn't that be up to the city council?
Well, yes, but I think the
tell them?
planning board can make recommendations. We can't
agree.
legislate, but we can, if we look into it and we say, okay, this is what we think we need to do in order to comply with the intent of that ordinance. The intent clearly was to expand infrastructure, and we need more than just the planning board to back that. We need the city council to back that, and we need the public works department to back that. If everybody's together on the same page, then going forward, we'll be able to provide an answer to the applicants when they come in and say, what's it going to cost me for this waiver? But again, so long as that ordinance is on the books, we should not, we are right to question I guess the appropriateness of these waivers in the future.
Well, and as Dean had pointed out, though, if we don't have a list and we can't sit here right now and say,
right,
you can have the waiver, but you have to apply this fee to the sidewalk fund for this project, then we can't do that at all.
Well, maybe you could get together with the other two officers and discuss that, and maybe make actual language, come up with language for a further ordinance or an amendment of the current ordinance that really makes it quite clear what the intent is and how it's going to be carried out, because ultimately the buck stops here. We approve an awful lot of waivers based upon representations that, well, it doesn't really provide a benefit. But I would submit that every foot of public way that we can approve is a public benefit, whatever it is. And if it's going to be state maintained roads, then we need them to be part of the solution and not part of the problem too. So, is there anybody else that wishes to be heard on this? All right, sensing none. The planning department report is always the highlight of these meetings for me.
Thank you, Peter. I want the board to know, the chair already knows, Jewel Fox has resigned from the planning board due to time constraints. Normal course of action would be for one of the alternates to elevate up to full-time membership. And Brett is the alternate with the most seniority, so usually get your first shot. I don't know if you want to be a regular full-time member, Brett, or continue to be an alternate, in which case we move on to another alternate, but that's your decision to make.
Do you need that decision right now?
I do not, just soon, if you could.
I guess I would point out that Brett's attendance has been 100% as far as I can recall. So really the only difference would be they'd have to stand before the city council and be vetted by them before he assumes the august role of a full member.
And Master Plan Steering Committee met last month, and we have another meeting coming up next week. So we have started that process again this week.
Send me a reminder on that one. I don't know that I have that in my company.
I'm sorry, that next week, or is that this Thursday?
This Thursday, isn't it?
It's this Thursday.
I'm being told it's this Thursday.
Oh, well.
I thought it was not, but that's okay.
All the more better.
My wife doesn't know what I look like these days anyway, so that's okay. We'll have the meeting this Thursday.
Okay, we could probably allow your wife to view the meeting using Zoom. It'd be almost like having you home.
I suspect she's busy that night.
I see. All right. Are there any liaison reports? I see we don't have city council representation this evening. No one from conservation. Stacy, you're a conservation, aren't you?
Yeah, you guys already discussed. The only thing on those condos, it seems like the homeowner association packet was getting bigger and bigger. That's the only thing that I was concerned about, is that they talked about invasive species that once a year need to be checked for. No phosphorus fertilizers. It seemed like there was a lot being put on into the association book. And when I was in a condo, I never even read it. So I'm pleased that the planning board did not go with the waiver for landscaping, because that was a wise choice.
Well, and your comment's well taken, and it also brings up an issue that we need to look at going forward, and that is, by what means will the planning department ensure compliance? The only time that any enforcement seems to occur is when abutters complain or something.
Right.
If we're going to grant conditional use permits and the like that have specific conditions like that, then I think we need to figure out, do we need more planning staff to do enforcement? So that's something maybe we could take up as new business in a future meeting. But there are a number of things that we could do. Anything else regarding the liaison reports?
From the historical overview district there, they've got a lot of stuff in the works, Peter, and I think, and Dean, you can correct me, but the plan is to come before the planning board. It's either April or May. I think it's April. Dean?
I think they're shooting for April, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So be prepared, everybody.
Yes, indeed, we must be prepared. All right. The only other thing I can think of that we might want to mention is that, and I can't find the email right now, but we have all been invited to the training. Does somebody have that email? Let me talk about that.
It's May 15th,
would be
I
worthwhile
believe.
for any. Yes.
There's a planning board and a zoning board track.
And there's a registration link in that email, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. If you want to participate, please let Kalina know. She will register you. We will pay, and all you got to do is zoom in. Hey, there it is.
Zooming. Okay. Sounds like fun. All right.
Highly recommend for the relatively new members of the board.
Well, I think it would benefit any of us.
It would, but
I already signed up.
there you go. All right. Is there any other business? Well, sensing none, that brings us to item 16 on the agenda. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this motion? Sensing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Approved.
Sarah, Mike Delavecchia,
I approve.
Sarah Jenna,
Yes.
Charlie Sinclair,
Yes.
Kirk Piatti,
Yep.
Rich McNeil,
Yes.
Susan Hodgkins,
Yes.
Brett Bellevue,
Abstain.
Stacy Susie,
Yes.
Peter Burnett.
Yes, despite my temptation to abstain. The motion is granted. Thank you all for your service to the city, and we'll see you on, is it April 4th?
April 6th.
6th. All right, then. Again, thank you